Okay, TV Guide did a big cover story of the final season of Game of Thrones, and they interviewed a bunch of actors, and I feel so vindicated. I guess there are spoilers in this video if interviews from actors talking about the final season is enough to spoil it for you, so if you want to go in cold to the final season, don't watch this video. So normally besides EW, there's not a lot of good cover stories for a season of Game of Thrones. There are some, but generally EW has the biggest scoops. Well, TV Guide proved me very, very wrong, because even though it was only 2 pages, holy shit, their coverage was amazing. This is the first time in my entire life I bought a TV Guide. I don't watch TV. I don't even have cable. That magazine is useless to me besides that cover story. I just get HBO for the small amount of time Game of Thrones is on. Okay, so let's just get right into it. So besides the normal hyping that is expected, the directors shared that they lit the most bodies on fire this season. More bodies than this. Oh my god. Though for clarification, they did say that it was mostly the undead being lit on fire because that's how you kill them. Tad disappointing, but I'm sure we'll still see living people set on fire. Jesus, this sounds really dark, doesn't it? Though that does sort of hamper my dreams of Dany losing her shit and lighting everyone on fire at King's Landing. But let's get into the stuff that made me throw my hands in the air like I did care, because despite people telling me over and fucking over again that Dany and Jon won't care that they're related, they will care, and there's more quotes saying that. Amelia shared, "She ends up in an incredibly fragile place. Jon is her only safety left." I mean, I'm not sure that Jon is her only safety left, but I can see where she'd be a bit upset learning that Jon, her nephew, is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, and she is not. I mean, like I talked about her caption in the EW spread, where she said there's so much she's seen and witnessed and been through and lost and suffered and hurt. She's been working for this her entire existence. And before you go up my ass about who is actually the legitimate heir of the Iron Throne, D&D, the showrunners, say that Jon is actually the legitimate heir. I know everyone has their own beliefs about who's actually legitimate and conquest and all that shit. We're talking about the show, and we're talking about what the showrunners think. And the showrunners, D&D, say Jon is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. If you disagree with that, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But for the sake of the story, that's what I have to go with, because that's what they have written. I'm sorry to the people that triggers, because I know it triggers quite a few people by the large number of death threats I've gotten. Also, and I'm so sorry, because after you get told you're a stupid whore so many times, getting validation on this part is just so beautiful. Kit Harington shared that, yeah, Jon is going to have a problem with Dany being his aunt and him having stuck his pee-pee in her. He shared, "He's not the kind of person who can knowingly jump in bed with a relative." Alright, sorry Johnson shippers. You're fucked. Although, actually, you could be less fucked in that regard, because in Game of Thrones, the World of Ice and Fire, first cousins is an okay degree of kinship, so maybe Johnson shippers? First cousins? Although honestly, I think in the end Jon's gonna get over Dany being his aunt, and he just can't help but ride that dragon. But let's go back to Sansa, because Sophie shared how there's going to be a lot of tension between Dany and Sansa when Dany first arrives at Winterfell. She said, "Sansa is threatened. She works so hard to control the North and feels like Jon should be loyal. It's frustrating to have Daenerys, who she feels is manipulating Jon, come in and take control. So I actually like her point. In past videos, I focused on how Sansa might feel threatened because Jon is siding with a Targaryen, and the Targaryens very recently were responsible for really fucking up the Stark family. The Mad King killed Sansa's grandfather and uncle, and she believes Dany's brother kidnapped, raped, and killed her aunt. But I really like the different look at why she'd be upset with Jon. Instead of, why are you siding with a monstrous house and inviting them into our home? It's more, dude, I worked so hard to get back here and get us all in control of the North again, and you just fucking give it away? Unbelievable. I'd be rightly pissed too. And as much as it pains me, I can start to see Sansa's point of view that Dany might be using her bad pussy to manipulate him. At the very least, I'd feel like, Jon, buddy, giving away what we just secured was a huge dick move. So there's gonna be tension between Jon and Sansa, but I like what Kit Harington shared when talking about that. He was like, what's new? There's always tension between those two. I mean, really.
I spent a lot of time thinking about what an ass I was to you. I wish I could change everything.
We were children.
I was awful, just admit it.
You were occasionally awful.
Sansa was always a dick to Jon, which, was actually Catelyn's fault mostly. She set a really bad example for her daughter. But speaking of unhappiness, we might not get a happy Jon-Arya reunion. Kit said on Arya and Jon meeting, "They have led brutal lives since we last saw them together in the series premiere. It's changed them. Are they going to be what we want them to be?" So I think that is more saying, yeah, they may hug it out like Sansa Arya did, but don't expect Arya to follow Jon around like a lost puppy dog and idolize him like she used to. Arya is a woman now with a lot of life experience, which, not surprising, Maisie touched on with TV Guide saying, she is balancing the woman she's become with the girl she dreamed of being. Maisie went on to say that Arya wanted to be back with her family, and that now that she has something to lose. To protect her family, Arya will step into the battlefield for the first time while still working on her list. And guess who's on top of that? Everyone's favorite Mad Queen, but don't call her Mad Queen because it triggers some people. I mean, everything triggers people nowadays. But speaking of that wonderful mad woman, we got more confirmation of something I said in another video. Jaime is incredibly loyal to Cersei, and he is not going to leave her for realsies. So on Cersei's end, Lena says her character is scared, but is staying in her safety lane, which is survival and a brave front. On Jaime's end, Nikolai said that Jaime left because he felt it was best for Cersei and their unborn child, saying, "There is no future without defeating the threat." This echoes Nikolai saying that people that interpreted this scene as Jaime walking away from Cersei were wrong, and that Jaime is still very loyal to her, and they have one of the few true love stories of the show. That still is just so upsetting, but you know what? You do you, Jaime. You fucking idiot. And because they really deviated from the books on this one, Tyrion and Jaime will be all buddy-buddy at Winterfell. Peter said that when Jaime and Tyrion come face-to-face at Winterfell, quote, "Tyrion trusts his brother. He loves him. We have some beautiful scenes." Bro hug? Bro hug. Peter also shared again that Tyrion is worried about the Jon-Dany romance, saying, he understands the potential danger for everybody if their relationship goes south. Relationship can't go south if one of them dies in childbirth. I'm betting Jon. He just doesn't have childbearing hips. Then there was, of course, talk of the epic battle at Winterfell between the living and the undead. With the months they spent on it, I'm sure they want to gush about it as much as possible. Adorably, Maisie once again shared that filming the battle was horrible and exhausting, but we got a new cute quote from her when she said, "I wanted to cry. As a petite woman among 6-foot-tall guys carrying swords that are taller than me, it gets pretty hairy." I just imagine tiny little Maisie amongst all these giants. I know it was miserable for her, but I don't know, In my head, it's so adorable. Amelia shared that Dany has even more screen time on her dragon, and that the technology for it is so much better now. Remember the sort of dicey shots we got before? Well, I guess no more. But what is interesting is they tease after the battle. David shared, "There has been crimes committed on all sides, and whether the characters are able to reconcile in some way, or if the friction, the feuds continue, that's one of the major issues we're going to see unfold." Which they raise an interesting point. Jon and Dany have very different ruling styles. Jon isn't okay with breaking the wheel by burning everyone. Dany is a bit more, I'll fucking murder you if I want to get what I want. Jon just wants to protect life at all costs while doing his duty. He isn't so much down with the burning. Which is made even more interesting because in another interview, Amelia talked about how this season deals with so much more than the Iron Throne. They ask questions about power and who should rule. However, if you ask Peter Dinklage in the interview with TV Guide, he thinks the throne should just go away, stating, "The throne is the problem. It should be dismantled." Or gasp, destroyed. Lastly, our two leading ladies shared their thoughts on the ending of the show to TV Guide. Lena said, "The final season is bonkers, immense, and emotional." While Amelia said it is beautifully written and masterfully closed up. The boys have woven magic. It's amazing. TV Guide also gave us a cool photo of Tyrion walking through Winterfell, and we see dragonglass spikes added to the defenses. So what did we learn with this cover story? 1. Stop fucking arguing with me about whether Jon is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne in the show. 2. Both Jon and Dany will have problems with their relationship for very separate reasons. And 3. I'm really pissed about Jaime and Cersei. Why can't Jaime ever learn his lesson? I swear to God, he's probably related to Dunk. As thick as a goddamn castle wall. Like, subscribe, and give me hope that Jaime's gonna get away from Cersei. Please.